Hey, yo, I am notifying the people on Twitter. There we go. Hello, everybody. Hello, Michael Weimer.
Check. Can you hear me?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Cool. Yeah.
Okay, good.
We
Scared me for a second. All right, man. Well, yeah, so the Bard of Indiana, what do you have to say today?
Indiana basketball has done what it always does for the last 30 years.
Ouch. In the heart. Yeah. I'm a major Knicks fan. My son's a major Knicks fan. He was born there, and I moved there in 1991. Permanently, I moved there in 1991, which was the kind of dawn of the greatest era in Knicks basketball, and it was an amazing time to be in New York. Yeah, it hurt, man, but congratulations, you fucks, once again, because back in the 90s, you were our nemesis, too.
94, 99.
Oh, I know.
Yes.
Oh, I know.
2000. Yeah.
I mean, we like, in our household, we actually hated Reggie Miller, like, hated him.
Mm-hmm. Because he was better than you.
It was irrational. Yeah, well, because he beat us, yes.
Yes. Yeah.
Shit, his fucking sister was better.
Yeah.
Cheryl Miller, still, I think, the greatest female basketball player of all time. But
yeah, and Reggie Miller's the proto Steph Curry. He was the first guy really hitting those threes, seeing the whole court.
If Steph were 6'7" or whatever, Reggie Miller was stupendous. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. All right, man. Let's talk world politics, geopolitics, death, destruction, missiles, killing babies, and all that.
Yeah. Do you want to?
If you don't, I mean, or we can talk about rhythm and blues.
We can. Yeah. We can dive straight into Israel or Ukraine if you want. If one of those two is popping out right at you, or there's a series of gay stories we can talk about. From
always enticing.
Yeah. From the Democratic strategy to Palantir to certain to the ships being renamed to a certain Brazilian journalist.
Right.
Yeah, I got.
Right. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Oh, God.
So,
okay.
If you want to go with culture, we can start there. Or if you want to talk about Israel, man, basically baiting. That has to be what happened, right? They basically baited Gazans like animals and killed a couple dozen. Or Ukraine drone bombing Russian nuclear pilots with potentially without NATO approval or with the encouragement of Lindsey Graham, or are they going rogue? Are they being egged on by Germany? Are they being egged on by members of our own deep state? So
let's do Ukraine first, because Israel's killing kids every day. So what else is new there?
Yeah,
that we can talk about that every day because they kill kids every day. We will get to that, I promise, because that regime and that murderous ideology will end in the near future, I am predicting. But anyway, back to Ukraine and Russia. Yeah, so there's I think one needs to continue to pay attention to liberal media, liberal establishment media, or actually the sort of remnants of it, because a lot of liberal establishment media is now on YouTube and has podcasts. Like the people who used to work for CNN and et cetera now, like Jim Acosta, he now has a Substack.
Well, this is important. There's a huge, the Democratic Party, we forget sometimes that Democrats exist in the last couple months, but
yeah, right.
The Democratic Party is in complete disarray. Jake Tapper is on his book tour talking about Biden's decline. KJP, Karine Jean-Pierre, is marketing herself as an independent.
Finally, what did I predict? I said this a long time ago. Once she found out about me and started listening to me, she would leave the Democrats, which she just did. But
she's a fiery independent. Chris Cuomo took that path as well.
She's a political analyst, sir. She's a political. That's what the blurb says. She's a political analyst.
Yeah. And Jake Sullivan right now, the interview he had where he said, you know what, the United States government official position was X, but my personal opinion was that Israel is committing war crimes. And so it seems like basically everybody to salvage their career is distancing themselves from the previous administration and trying to rebrand themselves as an independent thinker. And also you've got the potential 2028 candidates trying to brand themselves as men by growing beards. And
that's you talking about your mayor?
Yeah, Mayor Pete.
He's the mayor. He's the mayor of all of Indiana, right?
Yeah,
because he's so cool. He gets to be mayor of all the cities. Yeah.
Nobody in South Bend voted for him. Also, that's something nobody will tell you. Yeah, nobody in South Bend actually likes him. The thing is, every Midwestern liberal mom just like croons over him. There's something about him that just really speaks to boomers that wish they had a gay son who served in the military and spoke up for all the liberal platitudes. He strikes that perfectly. Boomers love him. But
nice.
Yeah, it's
liberal boomers.
Liberal boomers. Yeah, it's insane.
Right. Wow, interesting. But, okay, he has absolutely zero chance of ever being president. So
he's the Democratic front runner right now.
Sure, but yeah. I wouldn't even waste time talking about him because there's just truly zero chance. Mm-hmm. But so back to Ukraine, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, my point was you should continue to listen to liberal media because actually these days, because they're in opposition, they have things to say, and their analyses for the first time in recent memory, I think actually are incisive. So on this Ukraine-Russia thing, this latest incredible surprise drone attack, although there's some controversy about exactly how destructive it was. There's some video showing some of these strategic bombers at Russian air bases being blown up, and there's some video showing just a handful of them. Anyway, it pretty clearly happened. And for those who don't know, and I think this is established and not controversial, and the nice thing about it is that as far as I can tell, there's no casualties, only military equipment was destroyed, which is good. So it's easier to talk about for once. But so Ukraine sent somehow through espionage, they set up some system where they got a bunch of killer kamikaze drones packed into railroad cars that got sent amazingly into Russia right next to their air bases. And apparently, at the flip of a switch or the push of a button, the tops of these cargo train cars opened and all the killer drones flew out and then went and dive bombed into the Russian Air Force's strategic bomber fleet, the big planes that have carried some bombs over Ukraine, but generally speaking have not been used really ever, because thankfully Russia has not had to go to nuclear war. But yeah, these are the planes that carry the big nuclear bombs in the case of a big nuclear war, mostly with the United States or NATO. But anyway, so it was really impressive, and there's some videos, I'm sure most people have seen this. So the question is, one question is, how much was the United States involved in this? And the first thought, which is a smart one, is that, oh my God, of course the CIA had to give authorization, because from the beginning, even from before the beginning of the war, the CIA, as we know, US intelligence generally, the State Department, and the Ukrainian, I would say anti-Russian political movement has been in lockstep, working hand in glove. We know this from Vicki Nuland back in 2014, directing a lot of what was the revolution, so-called revolution in Maidan, to the press. So there's no question, I mean, of course, we give them all these weapons and money, and we're gonna have a say over what they do with it. That's not true in this case, I think, because look at the politics. You got to step back. The liberal podcasts, and the Bulwark, Pod Save America, I've started watching them and listening to them, and they actually are helpful because, again, they're finally in opposition, and truly in opposition. Liberals are actually, for the first time in my lifetime, in opposition. They weren't in opposition during Reagan because they still controlled all the institutions, but now they're losing control of the institutions. So anyway, of course, Ukrainian special services, secret ops, whatever you want, whatever units carried this out, and Zelensky himself would not tell the United States what they were going to do. Why? Trump, Vance, Witkoff, Rubio, every single member of the Trump administration, right, has been saying, fuck Ukraine, quite publicly, in fact, in many cases, and consistently since even before Trump took office. So why would they share intelligence? I actually think that's right. I think that this is the first time maybe that Ukraine did something without the CIA and the United States giving them the approval. What do you think?
Well, there's a difference between the Trump administration and the deep state, and potentially Lindsey Graham on his 9th visit to Ukraine that just preceded this, that had a budget of $800,000 between him and Senator Blumenthal, this bipartisan envoy to Ukraine, where they discussed that there is no peaceful option on the table. It is possible that those senators said, hey, we've been here before Trump. We've been giving you the green light. We've been making promises to you since like 2011, 2014, when Lindsey Graham went over with John McCain, and that the CIA and the deep state that has been oppositional to Trump and been operating these weapons the whole time gave Ukraine the intelligence they needed to execute this plan and kept it hidden from their superiors who are running things.
Okay, so so we still don't know what's going on in the so-called deep state, and it's still unclear what was even going on in the last 8 years in the deep state. We know, what we do know is that we know that there were certain FBI agents like Strzok and his girlfriend, whatever her name was, who were absolutely running an anti-Trump campaign from within the FBI and did a lot of the wiretapping of Trump because of that. That's known. The CIA, I still don't know. I don't know. The only evidence we have, and it's not evidence, is simply Trump himself saying, not long ago, I think, right when he took office, right, this time, that the CIA likes him, that he's fine in the CIA. There's no anti-Trump movement within the CIA. So it sounds like it's, again, so far, I don't know, but it sounds like so far it's just been a certain faction, and I think maybe even a minority faction within the FBI, who are trying to take Trump down. Well, so I don't know, man. I don't know. I don't see any evidence that the intelligence agencies are.
This is all speculation. Sure, this is all speculation. But like with the JFK assassination, like the Larry Hancock hypothesis that it was a team in Miami going rogue that ended up going after JFK. It's pretty easy to imagine that these deep state plants that have been in Ukraine for over a decade are pretty much acting rogue and have no accountability.
Yeah.
The people who have been training them how to use the weapon systems. The other hypothesis is that they're working with the Europe wing of NATO. And this is the UK and Germany having some satellites or something to target these Russian bases.
Yeah. Although, I don't know, the UK, Starmer and company, I mean, they're still, officially pro-Ukraine, but they've softened lately on their commitment to the war. So I don't know. I'm not even sure about that. Man, hats off though. Hell of an operation. I mean, damn. And listen, kind of my pacifist soul is sort of happy anytime I see weapons of war of that scale. These are nuclear bombers, right? Getting destroyed. And no one died, as far as I know. No human being died. So even though it was on the side that I think is a proxy for U.S. imperialism, I still am sort of glad to see weapons of mass destruction getting destroyed without human beings inside of them. But yeah, so
I think,
but yeah, I mean,
yeah.
but listen, but the main point, the most important point is the political part, again, which is the relationship between the United States and the Zelensky government, and what this says about that, right?
Well, I think we can rule out Trump knowing about these attacks and lying about knowing about it. I think Trump didn't know about it, and he's kind of angry about it.
Well, right, okay, yeah, I suppose, yeah. So I mean, Trump not knowing about it, but Trump clearly has not known about a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
In the last few months, given his statements about tattoos on people's knuckles, etc. A lot of things. He's clearly not even been briefed. Kind of amazing. There's a radical incompetence going on in the Trump administration, right? I mean, that's just simply part of the story, isn't it? That he literally does not know a lot of what his own administration's doing. I think especially at the border, I think especially with ICE. But who knows, right? I really don't know if Trump knows what he's talking about, if he's even been briefed on these things. Stephen Miller seems to be really running the show. Isn't that your impression?
Just because Stephen Miller is the most articulate advocate of the administration doesn't mean he's in charge necessarily.
And well, he's Jewish.
Yeah. We give him a pass. He's as they say.
No, well, everybody. He's the first. Well, let's see.
Kissinger's. I mean,
although Kissinger just ran foreign policy, he didn't. Stephen Miller runs everything. But no, Jews. Let's see. Other than Kissinger, Rahm Emanuel under Obama, he ran everything. First term Obama. Other than that, that's it, guys. It's all been WASPs. You're gonna have to get used to this. It's really been Anglo-Saxons who have run this country for the most part, especially the government, for the most part. Well, the wings, the radical wings, have been run by Jews, but it's not. It's just.
I think you have a bias towards verbal intelligence.
Me?
I think you have a personal bias towards verbal intelligence.
Yeah.
And or
what?
Demonstrations of it. Just because Stephen Miller is a good spokesman for the administration doesn't necessarily mean he's pulling the strings. It just means
he is.
Yeah. Okay.
No, he is. I mean, don't you? I mean, honestly, like, don't you think? Like, I think that's who Trump listens to first. And the crazy press conferences in the White House with the South African president and Zelensky. Remember what happened in both? It was Miller who Trump at one point turns to him and says, "Stephen, why don't you tell everybody what's really going on?"
Well, Stephen is a holdover from the first administration, which is rare. He's one of the holdovers that's been tight from the first administration. So you might be right on that.
Well, no, it's pretty well. No, it's pretty well established. I mean, the Miller has been Trump's. I think even more than Bannon. I think this is established. That has been even more than Bannon, Trump's major intellectual influence. I do think he looks to Miller for guidance. Let me just say something about Stephen Miller that's very important. He, in fourth grade, attended Franklin Elementary School in Santa Monica. And then I think 25 years later, my son attended Franklin Elementary School in Santa Monica. And they both had the same teacher in fourth grade, and her name is Nikki. I forget her last name. People can Google this. And even though I am very much antagonistic towards Stephen Miller these days, what this bitch did is unbelievable. when Trump, and I used to volunteer in the class, when my son was in her class, I used to go and parents would come in and grade papers and stuff. And that's how, I knew her. When Trump was elected, she wrote an article, I think it was for the Hollywood Reporter, in which she talked about how neurotic Stephen Miller was when he was in fourth grade in her class.
Nothing like holding a grudge against a 9-year-old.
When he was 9 years old. And she went on, the whole article was about what an evil kid he was. This is his teacher. And also, this is a public school.
Yeah.
His parents, Stephen Miller's parents, paid for this school to exist, and then he was forced to go to that school. And then this teacher then tells the public that he was evil. Anyway, I wish I could remember her last name. First name's Nikki. Anyway, sorry.
9-year-olds.
Right.
Yeah.
They should be held accountable for what's going on in this country. Don't you
Yeah.
think?
Yeah.
It's those fucking fourth graders.
um I have no idea how anybody manages a classroom of more than 5 people under the age of 10. Like, I don't know how. Yeah, like without destroying your soul. I've been in that situation a couple times, and it's impossible to
Wait.
like.
You know this, right? It's what they do is they destroy the souls
Yeah,
beforehand.
yeah.
Beginning in kindergarten. That's what it's
Yeah,
about. Kindergarten is is the beginning of the destruction of the soul of the child.
yeah.
So my God, by the time they get to fourth grade, oh, the soul's long gone by then.
Yeah.
Most kids have no soul by the end of first grade.
Mhm.
And by that I mean you will line up without anybody telling you to.
Mhm.
By that I mean you will go and walk into a room and then sit down quietly at a desk and not speak for an hour.
Yeah.
Without being told to. Yeah.
So the thing about Trump, though, and not being knowledgeable, I consider this an asset about him because it makes him impossible to be compromised in a lot of ways.
True. Well,
he does not read his briefings. This has been famous from the first administration. And this is how the CIA has always bragged about being able to control a president, is that they're the ones who give him the briefings. They're the one who gives him the intelligence. And he just doesn't have time to read that crap and goes on his instinct for things.
Okay, so this is why I want to know what Miriam Adelson is thinking these days, because she gave him $100 million
Mm-hmm.
in his last campaign, and she gave him, I think, more than that in the first campaign. So he is deeply indebted to Miriam Adelson. And for those who don't know, she's the widow of Sheldon Adelson, who's a big magnate, whose number one political priority was Israel, and he's been giving millions and tens of millions of dollars to candidates for years, especially Trump, who are completely pro-Israel. And here's where it really gets nice and spicy. The Adelsons have, and Miriam, this is her chief cause, is to have the United States encourage Israel to formally annex the entire West Bank and make it part of Israel proper, and thereby making the 2 million, 3 million, 4 million Palestinians who live in the West Bank permanent non-citizen subjects of the state of Israel. So fanatical Zionists. Anyway, so Trump has been running all over the map in the last month or so in terms of his policies in the Middle East in ways that are completely contrary to Zionists like Adelson. So I'm really curious about that. And this is where I think this is to your point, right? Like he has demonstrated a very, very independent streak. He is really pissing off his most important donor on this big issue in multiple ways. I mean, the Zionist lobby, the Israel lobby, the Adelsons, they have been loving Trump until a month ago, and now he is pissing in their cereal. So he is still independent.
Well,
as a thinker.
And there's this other donor, Musk, who is this is related to Ukraine a little bit. Before we close on Ukraine, I think another signal that may not have been from the United States directly, but seeing that the big beautiful bill that just passed the House included funding for Ukraine to continue, and so if Ukraine sees that that's passing through the House and that Stephen Miller and the administration is going hardcore on this, that Donald Trump is calling out Thomas Massie for opposing him on this, and that this is baked into the cake now on the spending bill, then that's kind of a go ahead to continue the war. That might be a signal, but that may not be an official briefing, but that's how they might have interpreted it. Musk is splitting with Trump over the spending in the bill, and that Doge cuts aren't in the bill, and that Doge cuts aren't being brought before Congress. And Musk is now allying publicly on Twitter with Thomas Massie, Rand Paul, and Justin Amash, and is threatening to primary everybody who's voting for this spending bill, and seems to be splitting publicly for the first time with the Trump agenda. And Speaker Mike Johnson has called him out publicly on it. And this seems to be the first official split between Musk and Trump.
Didn't Merle Haggard make a song about Elon Musk? Wasn't it called "Mama, Don't Let Your Autistic Boy Become a Politician"? Isn't that the name of that song?
That's a Waylon Jennings, but
Waylon Jennings. My bad. Sorry.
Yeah.
Damn it. Fuck.
Yeah.
Fucked up a joke. Yeah. No, Mama, don't let your autistic boy become a politician. What a. I mean, and who could have called it? Who could have called it? The latest press conference where he's in the Oval Office with the bruise on his eye, and the black eye, and he's. Don't you think he was tweaking?
I don't know. I don't like to speculate.
You don't want to get into personal slander and TMZ level analysis.
I don't.
You don't want to.
I mean, black eyes.
I think that's what's important. That's what drives ratings, Michael.
I know, but black eyes.
Do you want an audience? Do you want to be relevant? Do you want people to care about our show?
We're on YouTube. If you want to know about black eyes and prominent figures and what that means, there are plenty of channels on BitChute. There are plenty of channels that can explain what that means. And maybe he just fell and hit his head on a coffee table, or he fell down the stairs. Because he can get lippy sometimes and just a little hysterical. I don't know, but
the main story is that it makes me want to try ketamine.
Mm-hmm.
Really, I mean, if it's that good that Elon Musk is doing it,
I can trust that he's using it for depression treatment. That's been documented that it's an effective depression treatment.
His dad hated him, and what did he say? What was that? His dad was glad when he got beaten up at school because he was so annoying to his other classmates and so condescending to them.
Mm-hmm.
His dad said in an interview he was glad that happened because Elon needed it because he was such an asshole. His own father. Yeah, so I can imagine some depression, the inability to understand other human beings on an emotional level at all. It's isolating. I get it. Asperger sucks, man. Just don't become a politician. Mm-hmm. Mama, don't let your autistic boy into politics. Mm-hmm. Waylon Jennings said that. You can quote him on that. Yeah. Anyway, so so Doge. So here's the thing. He promised $1 trillion in cuts. Right? What was the other promise?
This is what
those heady first few weeks. $1 billion a day. What was it? $1 billion a day? He was promising.
Yeah, this is. Well, I mean, it was set up to fail because Congress controls the purse, and believe it or not, the Trump administration was actually following the Constitution on this. So all they could do is find recommendations, and all that came down the pike was $10 billion that Congress needs to vote on at the end of the day, and it's harder than that. And it was a special thing that Musk
it sounds like you're defending Elon Musk. Is that what?
Yeah. He always promises. He always over promises, and is about 5 years behind schedule. He always comes out on top, but he always over promises early, as many tech billionaires do on everything. But the thing is, you've got Clint Russell talking to him on Twitter saying, "Hey, for $500 million, which is chump change for you, you could primary literally everybody in Congress." So this is the thing. Does Elon Musk go libertarian, scorched earth, and break up some MAGA loyalists or some establishment Republicans?
Inshallah. Yeah. I mean, maybe. Does Elon Musk listen to Clint though? I don't know.
Jack Dorsey is egging him on. Jack Dorsey is retweeting. Yeah. So this seems to be like a split between the tech billionaires that propped up Trump a little bit the second time around, and Trump himself over the issue of spending.
Yeah. Okay. So what I kind of want to talk about is, but we don't have to, is the splintering of the MAGA movement.
Yeah, that's what's going on. Yeah.
Yeah, right. Okay, so Elon is just a prominent part, but just one part of just not a splintering, a shattering of the movement that ultimately brought Trump to power. And, you know, I would say I was, broadly speaking, a part of it. I mean, I had multiple prominent MAGA people on my show, and I said, I was defending MAGA in many ways, generally, publicly. And, so that thing of the last 10 years now, it's a 10-year-old thing since Trump announced in 2015. That amazing, crazy, contradictory movement that emerged and then was strengthened during COVID, and then I think was strengthened again with the repression against it, especially around January 6th. But that thing that ultimately, as I said, remember how MAGA people felt in November last year? They were kind of like, fuck you, you're going to vote for us, and this is going to be great. We're going to win, and we're going to change America for the better, and very confident in their mission.
Still happening, yeah. I mean, I'm still on board. I'm still...
Yeah, I know, but there's like 4 of you left.
It's
bad, man. I mean, I'm just saying, like, it's been just shattering on multiple rocks, Israel was the first rock. And that's right now, I think, the biggest cleavage. I think there's a giant chunk of MAGA that has no interest in supporting Israel anymore. And the other chunk is just idiots who have been told that they're supposed to support Israel and don't know any better. But that's a major cleavage. And then the tech thing, that the attempt to get Musk and Andreessen and Thiel on board, which they did.
Yeah.
And gave Trump a bunch of money, but now it turns out they don't agree with you on stuff like immigration, like spending.
Yeah, the H-1B visas, that's a big thing that Musk is a proponent of. Yeah.
But then also sort of bigger abstract questions like this humanism shit, which like Steve Bannon hates, and I don't even think it matters, but like that's a big thing
that's
people.
That's the thing. No, that's the thing that's the spiritual emptiness inside of Elon Musk, is that he's got a God-sized hole in his heart.
Yeah. I mean, I get that. Right. I mean, there's he's truly a technocrat. Like if that term has any meaning, it applies to Elon Musk. He's a technocrat. I mean, there is, again, this goes with the autistic personality. Like feelings, emotions, the visceral realm are irrelevant and to be discarded. Let's get to the zeros and the ones. This is data. This is analysis. Let's go. It's right. It's just ones and zeros, blacks and whites, and logic. And
these
math.
Conversations aren't even possible without Trump being in office. Like,
true. Oh yeah, true. But wouldn't you rather have them out of power? See, this is the thing.
No.
The opposition. The opposition is always more interesting, and it's always better to be in opposition than to be in power. If you are an actual radical or revolutionary, look at every revolutionary movement ever. They're cool when they start. The King of France is corrupt. True. Great analysis that only revolutionaries could have. But the second the Jacobins took power, what did they do? Total corruption and mass murder.
Yeah, we're not talking about
the Bolsheviks. Same thing, right? The king,
we're not talking.
Tsar.
MAGA's not revolutionary. It's homegrown populist. No, they're still Republicans. They're still Lincoln's party. They're still the party that is like the dominant political force.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, right. But that's revolutionary because, as you know, American government, the state generally, certainly for the last 80, 90 years, has been taken over by people who want to obliterate what MAGA imagines to be when America was great, right? Mm-hmm. Yes, the old Republican Party. Yes, the party of Lincoln. Correct. And the Democrat, I mean, I think FDR is actually their main idol, which is another problem, but we can talk about that another time. But yeah, I mean, yes, sort of pre-1945 America is kind of their nostalgia, isn't it?
I would say they have nostalgia for Reagan. They have, they have a lot of nostalgia for Reagan, and a lot of the latecomers, the tech comers, have nostalgia for Bill Clinton, and Donald Trump was a supporter of Bill Clinton all throughout the 90s. That vision of government, I think, people forget that Bill Clinton, deported and had he deported 1 million people, and he had a voluntary removal program that got rid of like another 11 million people. And he was sort of like a middle of the road populist guy that worked with his opposition in Congress to, get rid of the deficit and make government more efficient. And he got a lot of competent governance done that I think a lot of San Francisco billionaires admire and would like to go back to. So I think that's actually really implicit in the MAGA message. But yeah, the booming Reagan and just confidence in the United States being on top. A lot of boomerism in there too. Just wanted to return to
American patriotism.
Yeah,
the red, white, and blue.
Yeah,
I had a communist professor in the 1980s say to me, the reason that Reagan won and was our president now is the red, white, and blue, the flag. People get turned on. It was erotic by patriotism, and the Tom Cruise movies, Top Gun, and others, and things like that. And the Harrison Ford movies of the 80s were almost proof of that. So sure, there's that.
I was gonna say Roger Stone. The Roger Stone wing idolizes Nixon. I think the people who are woke and know about Watergate sort of idolize Nixon's landslide and want that popular sentiment back. They just want popular pro-American competent governance back. I think is what a lot of the elites want, and then the ground troops just want to feel good about being American.
Yep. So I'm writing down right now that I need to write an article about this. Go ahead. Yeah.
By the way, do you know what's on Nixon's tombstone? It's a quote from his first inaugural address.
No.
The greatest honor that history can bestow is the title of peacemaker.
Oh, yes. I did know
that.
Yeah, right. Mm-hmm.
So
let me really briefly, because this is so important and damn near no one talks about this or even knows about this. I didn't know about it until not that long ago, having studied this shit for a long time. Ronald Reagan on foreign policy is a very interesting cat and not exactly what he's made out to be. When I was coming up, I was in my early 20s when he was, no, not early, I was 15 when he was first elected. But I sort of came of age politically during the Reagan era in the 80s. And Central America, his funding of the Contras through the Iran and this funding of the Salvadoran government against the communist insurgents and the nasty wars in Central America that he was largely behind. That was kind of our main issue. And that's still, I think, I don't know. Yes, I think Reagan should have had nothing to do with those wars. But anyway, nonetheless, those were still relatively small, very, very small countries. And Grenada was the other one, an even smaller country. And then his boy Bush Sr., who took over, Panama, also a very small country, but that was it. And in terms of the big stuff, meaning the Soviet Union, look what happened. I do not give credit to Ronald Reagan whatsoever for the fall of the Soviet Union. I give all credit to the people of the Soviet Union and Eastern Europe. But nonetheless, he didn't start a war. And in fact, he by the end, he was seeking détente with Gorbachev, and he did. He reached it. That's not something that a Joe Biden or even a Barack Obama or a Bill Clinton would do with Putin, seek détente. But my God, Ronald Reagan did with the communists in the 1980s, and look what it got us. But here's the thing that people don't know about, which is that Ronald Reagan probably, yes, I think this is right, before Trump was actually the first non-imperialist American president, meaning not ideologically.
I would put Nixon in there too. A little bit.
Yeah.
Because he had to clean up the mess of Vietnam. Yeah.
There's an argument for that, for sure.
Yeah.
Yes, that's something to be discussed. But yes, in fact, I was thinking about that. The kind of lineage from Nixon and Kissinger is sort of
Kissinger's the through line. And Nixon and Kissinger advised Reagan in his early years because Reagan was a Hollywood guy out of his fish out of water in DC.
Correct. So basically the 1970s, the sort of late Vietnam and post-Vietnam era. It was actually not the Democrats who became anti-imperialist. People think that they were the big anti-war party then. No. intellectually, philosophically, it was from the influence of Kissinger, Nixon, Reagan, and I'm going to get to my main point in a second, in the Republican Party, where there's idea about why should the United States be the global hegemon? Why should we be the global policeman? Why should we do regime change wars? Why should we launch preemptive wars against bad guys halfway across the world to occupy their countries and re-educate their children? It was in the Republican Party that those questions were first asked, not in the Democratic Party. And that was under Reagan in particular, where that became a real question. I didn't hear it at the time because it was pretty quiet, because I was on the left and we didn't listen to the right wing, but that voice has gotten louder and louder and louder. And then it's full flower under Trump and the MAGA movement, God bless, and the America First movement. So anyway, but what people need to know is
two more through lines
Sure.
on that. Your favorite debate moment in all of history, Bob Dole, when he said in the 90s, every war, Korea, World War I, World War II, Vietnam, all Democrat wars. That's what he campaigned on. And then Pat Buchanan is also another through line from the Nixon administration to present day. And Pat also, the book everybody needs to read is Where the Right Went Wrong by Pat Buchanan, where he talks about it was George Bush and Netanyahu that turned the Republican Party into the war party, and we need to move on from that.
Yep. Yeah. It's in there. If you are anti-war in any way, shape, or form, the only friends you're going to find are in the Republican Party, historically, and now. But like over the last 100 years, that's it. That's the only. George McGovern, 1972. People think of him as like this great anti-war candidate. No, he was all about the empire. He just thought Vietnam was a bad idea. But look at George McGovern. His ideas about the Cold War generally and about the American empire in general. Oh no, he was all about it. He just thought Vietnam was like really mean and bad and dumb. The way that Barack Obama thought about Iraq. Not that the United States should not do such things ever, but that they shouldn't do such things that are dumb like that. That's what he called Iraq, a dumb war. They weren't anti-empire. They wanted the empire to be smarter. That's what the Democratic Party was. Whereas in the Republican Party, within factions of the Republican Party, going all the way back, of course, to the infamous isolationists of the 1920s, so we're now talking about a century of this, that's where you have the deeper questions being asked about whether the United States should be an empire at all. I'm writing a big piece. I'm finishing a big piece for Substack. It'll be published tomorrow on how the founding fathers were always completely committed to a global empire, that America was founded as a global empire, that John Locke and other classical liberals who influenced the founding fathers were all global imperialists and provided justification for it intellectually with classical liberal theory. Yes, you classical liberals, this is going to be piss off some people. So the tradition in America, all the way back, and this I'm taking it back to John Adams in the 1750s and Ben Franklin in the 1750s and Thomas Jefferson in the 1760s and 70s, way before the American Revolution started. All these guys, Washington, Jefferson, Adams, Hamilton, Franklin, all of them, every single one of them was dreaming about, fantasizing about, in exquisite detail, America as the new and next Rome. The difference was they wanted it to be global, truly global, and to truly change the world and make everyone American. Yeah, the founding fathers were imperialists from the beginning. This is the only thing that Ron Paul has wrong about American history. This is the only thing that classical liberals have wrong about American history. The anti-war people, who I love, have said this for a long time. The founding fathers were isolationists. They didn't want entangling alliances. No, if you actually read George Washington's speech, it's not about that at all. He's talking about a very specific thing with France at the time. No, he's allowing the United States to become a global empire. He just didn't want anyone to get in our way. This is unilateralism. That's what that farewell address is about.
The foreign entanglements were bad because they bankrupt us, not because they're imperialist ventures.
And they got in our way. If we wanted to go invade a country like Thomas Jefferson did on the first day he was president in the Barbary Coast, he sent Marines to Tripoli and overthrew a government there and installed a new regime that was friendly to the United States. Yeah, that was Thomas Jefferson as president. The first thing he did as president was that. I mean, come on, these guys were global imperialists from the jump, and they had intellectual political justification for it too. It wasn't just that they did these invasions no, for all of them, we're talking from the beginning. They grew up as children. I have evidence of this, of them thinking and speaking when they're kids of America being the next Rome and of them being the next Caesar. All of them have imperial fantasies. All of them. So my point is that the beautiful isolationists of the 20th century that emerged out of the Republican Party, this is a funny thing to say, but it's true. Even though they come out of the Midwest and the South and the Republican Party and agrarian societies, they're less American. They're less American than George Washington. George Washington wanted us to march all over the damn globe. John Adams, Thomas Jefferson, all of them wanted us to march across the globe and change everyone's culture to make them like us. And this is when I publish a Substack piece, people will see the evidence for it. It's obvious. So that the beautiful isolationists who I love of the 20th century, and we're now seeing their resurgence in the Trump movement, are actually un-American. And that's why I love them. How's that?
Mm-hmm.
You commie.
Yeah.
You're like, yeah, whatever.
Yeah. I need to find yeah.
Don't you think that impulse is less American than calling?
Well,
yes. I mean, who has spoken against the American empire as an idea? Only radicals. Pat Buchanan, what happened to him?
Yeah, I mean, he got fired from MSNBC and he got labeled a racist and anti-Semite and thrown into obscurity and writes on Tacky Mag. But
Noam Chomsky, like, when's the last time he was ever in some, legitimate publication? No, you get marginalized if you're anti-empire. If you're pro-empire, you can be president.
Mm-hmm. I want to find this thread.
It's un-American to be anti-imperialist, which means it's good. Please understand me, everybody.
Yeah.
So go ahead. Sorry.
Well, the problem with the founding fathers is that they were British and that they were colonial subjects and that they had an inferiority complex and they just wanted to do Britain better. And I need to do more historical reading and find how this new American consciousness emerged. But I need to find, how the Republican Party at some point after Teddy Roosevelt, Teddy Roosevelt is some sort of pivotal figure that I don't know much about. What happened to get them to where they are now? FDR is a big polarizing figure, especially with Nixon's opposition to him. I think Nixon in his early years was actually a liberal, but he was anti-communist and he saw that FDR was a communist. Yeah. So I think there's something about wanting to save the republic, wanting America to be competent and prosperous, and wanting to stop us from becoming communists. That to me is true Americanism.
Okay. Okay. So party realignment.
Yeah.
And people wonder about this all the time. And it's a great question to have. Like, why is the Republican Party the party of Lincoln and Donald Trump, and George Bush? Like, what do those three guys have in common? Why was the Democratic Party the pro-slavery party in the 1850s, and now it's the party of wokeness and anti-racism? How did that happen? Okay, so there is a simple key to understanding this.
Well, wokeness and anti-racism is slavery.
Well, yeah, new slavery, yeah. So it's just follow the blacks and the immigrants, right? Because those are the voters. Those are the large number. So we got the white bloc across 250 plus years, more or less voting more or less voting the same way. But then we have these massive infusions of immigrants beginning in the 1830s. But then we also have, and people don't realize this, a huge increase in the Black population, and then their diffusion into the big cities. That becomes a real problem politically, right? Because you have then in the major cities, which become political centers of power, you have major Black voting blocks, so they have to be taken seriously. They're no longer limited to the hinterlands of the American South. They're they're in New York City, they're in Philadelphia, they're in Boston, right? And the mayors of those cities and then the governors of those states have real national power. So that happened in the 19th century. You had huge infusions of immigrants and then huge infusions of Blacks into the power centers of the United States. And so the parties made decisions, the Democrats and the Republicans, as to which one they would try to hitch their wagon to gain power. And simply the Democrats just out-angled the Republicans in the 20th century, and they became the parties of the immigrants. The welfare state benefited Blacks and immigrants disproportionately. The Republicans chose to abandon that idea and that project. And then in the 1930s and 40s with FDR and the New Deal, that became completely solid because there was just so much graft going into the big cities where the immigrants and the Blacks were in the 1930s, 40s, 50s, and 60s. Democratic Party programs and policies just flooding the big cities with all kinds of money, funding the schools, funding housing, you name it. And so those people had and then not to mention employment, my God, like the number of Black African Americans in the big cities after 1945 who worked directly for the federal government, huge, like giant proportion of Black employment was for the government, the federal government, since 1945. So they became sort of wards of the state as well. Yeah, so that's why the Democrats and the Republicans flipped back and forth. It was just about the inflow of populations into their population centers of power. Yeah, and then the Civil War, right? Of course, that you can see, like, that's another story. But yeah, so that's the for the 20th century. It's about where the immigrants and the Blacks went geographically and then politically. That explains why the Democrats who they are today and the Republicans who they are today.
Yeah, that's a lot. That's a lot to consider. I think the communist infiltration of the Democratic Party can't be understated, though.
Let's go there.
And Alger Hiss.
Let's go there.
Yeah. And the long march through the institutions that was happening in the 20th century.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, we know this from the Venona cables, which were the leaked KGB documents. Not leaked, they were discovered in the 1990s. So we got Soviet files from the KGB, which included their correspondence with all their espionage agents in the United States. So we know what they were doing. They were trying to subvert this country to establish a Soviet United States. They wanted to impose Stalinist communism on America. No doubt about it. They wanted Joseph Stalin, the Politburo, to rule over America. No, there's no doubt about that. Yeah. So, and that began, everybody, in the 1920s. There were Soviet agents who had American accents who might have been born in the United States, who were working inside the United States to overthrow the government here and replace it with a Soviet-style communist dictatorship. And that began in the 1920s. It took off in the 1930s. And the 1930s was when communism in the United States was super popular, the most popular ever. And the Communist Party USA had a membership of between 1 and 2 million. And many of those people who were members of the CPUSA were working actively and being paid by the Politburo of the USSR, which at that point was run by Joseph Stalin. And their mission was to overthrow the United States and remake it into a Soviet republic. Yeah, and that continued through the 50s and into the 60s. And it stopped because of Joseph McCarthy and what we call McCarthyism and what we call the Red Scare after the World War II in the 40s and 50s, when all these people were purged from government positions, from Hollywood positions. All the directors and producers in Hollywood who were communists lost their jobs. Hundreds, thousands of people, government employees, were fired for being communist or communist affiliated during this time. And this has always been portrayed as a great tragedy, a great injustice in American history. In fact, one of the greatest. If you look at standard liberal history, right, it's like slavery, the Native Americans, and then I think like what we did to the communists in the 50s are the three worst crimes of America. But let's consider, again, I think I raised this last week, like it's a very interesting ethical question. What do you do when your country has lots of people in it who want to convert it to a communist dictatorship? Do you put them in prison, or do you let them do what they want to do? It's a great question.
Yeah. And to show like how much this dominates U.S. history to today, public school kids across the country for the last probably 40 years, they get taught the McCarthy hearings as witch trials, and they get taught that history in conjunction with the Rosenbergs, who they are taught that the Rosenbergs were innocent, and they are taught that in conjunction with an English reading assignment of Arthur Miller's The Crucible to make you see it all as a witch trial. And that is the curriculum that I was raised with. And Arthur Miller, probably a communist, right? And to this day, and this is middle America, whatever white bread you were raised on, that's what you were told history is. And it turns out Alger Hiss was in the State Department. FDR and his State Department was largely compromised by the Soviets. People don't really think about FDR allying with Stalin and the Soviets. And that the attitude then was that the Soviets were an experiment that we should watch play out and maybe hope to see how they work out in the future. But yeah, to this day, that's taught as hysteria and racism, that Joseph McCarthy was an insecure, hysterical racist, that all these people were innocent, and that they were just dissidents doing their American duty of speaking out against injustice. And that's American history.
Yes, perfectly put. They were communists, capital C communists in America in the 1950s, were, I think, just like inmates in San Quentin, which is to say, mostly guilty.
Oh, and all these commies came from Harvard, by the way. People.
Yeah, right. And when I say guilty, maybe not of a crime in particular other than treason, which I don't care about. It depends on what kind of treason you're committing, what kind of government you want to impose on me. But they wanted to impose, as I said, the government of the Soviet Union. And this is what they were about. They were members of the Communist Party. It's incredible. I grew up, my God, dude. My whole life, this is what we were taught on the left, even among the Trotskyist left like me, the people who were anti-CP, anti-Soviet leftists. Even us believed that what was done to the Rosenbergs was a terrible crime, terrible injustice, that the Red Scare was this terrible injustice, that it, destroyed American culture, blah, blah, blah. And here's the thing, like the emotional manipulation, and this is why political feelings that people have, I'm speaking from experience. If you have a feeling that's related to politics in any way, a powerful feeling that's about politics, check it. Because for years and years and decades, everybody on the left in America at some point in their life cried about the Rosenbergs.
Well, public school kids to this day are taught to cry about it and are taught to read The Crucible in conjunction with it at the age of 10. And then we wonder why everybody comes out in college as these left-wing radicals, as communists. It's baked into the cake.
I had feelings, man. We've all cried. And then their children, the Miraples, their children were named Mirapole, their last name. And wasn't there a Hollywood movie? Yeah, there was, made about them, I believe. But the Mirapole children had a whole decades-long media campaign thing where they just laid it on thick, and we felt so bad and sad and enraged at the injustice that their family faced and their poor parents faced. Now, they were electrocuted, I believe, both of them in an electric chair. I don't like that one bit. But I mean, listen, like, what do we think about people who want to impose a dictatorship on the society in which we're living? I don't need to kill them, but I would like them removed. It's a really tough question, both for the left and for libertarians. The left is easier. They have an easier time with this question because they're not as interested in freedom, you know. But libertarians, I think, need to deal with this. It's a tough one. And I don't even know where I stand. Like, what would have been my position in 1955 vis-a-vis members of the Communist Party USA? Like, what should have been done to them then? I don't know. Fortunately, we don't really have a fifth column in our country now of any significance. There is nothing like that. The right-wing idiots will talk about Muslims and whatever, you know, in Western New York, or there's nothing like this going on. But it could happen. It did happen here between the 30s and the 1950s. For about a 20-year period, the Communist Party was a significant force in American politics. It was significant. It was not a fringe thing. They had a major newspaper that had like a circulation of more than 1 million. And yes, and back to where you started, they had major inroads into the Democratic Party, capital D. You're right, Michael. Like, the Democratic Party had, not all of it by any means, but significant portions of the Democratic Party, members of the Democratic Party were members, or at least fellow travelers, with the Communist Party. And in particular in the State Department, which is where McCarthy focused most of his attention, was on the foreign policy piece. Yeah, there were actually people in the State Department who were either working directly for the Soviet Union or, as I said, were what were called fellow travelers, who were completely sympathetic to the CP line. Man, it's a tough one. Then what do we do? Do we lock them up? Do we kill them for treason, which is that's the penalty for treason? It's a capital offense.
That's in the Constitution, right? Treason's a capital offense. That's the one thing in the Constitution, as far as
correct.
Yeah,
that's right. Now, I don't like that because I'm not a nationalist. I'm an anti-nationalist. But then again, I also don't want to live in a communist country.
You said, just because we're running low on time, you said there's no fifth column. I mean, if there is a fifth column now, it's Israel. And we should probably,
Yes. I can't believe we're saying this. I mean, oh man. I wish I had been more aware of this. I just didn't. I guess that's true for a lot of us. I just simply did not adequately appreciate the power of the Israel lobby. We've talked about this a lot, but yeah, I mean, that's to me one of the main lessons I've drawn from the last 2 years. I had I wouldn't say dismissed it, but the Mearsheimer-Walt thesis about the power of the Israel lobby, I'd kind of always said it was overstated, and I just wasn't worried about it. I just never thought it would manifest in any serious, significant way. Man, was I wrong. So that's the first thing. I mean, just within American domestic politics and law enforcement and the crackdown on these the protests on campuses, etc., being clearly called out by Israeli agents, just stunning. And then, of course, the lockdown in Congress. I mean, to watch these Congress people, like all of them except for Thomas Massie and Rand Paul, all of them saying the exact same thing and clearly spouting propaganda for a foreign country. And then we know AIPAC Tracker will show you on Twitter every time how many hundreds of thousands of dollars they've each has taken from AIPAC or the Israel lobby. Yeah, it's amazing. So you want to talk about this latest thing where they killed 30 people or so who were trying to get aid, trying to get food in Rafah in southern Gaza.
Yeah.
It's not true, Michael. You're anti-Semitic for suggesting that it was Israeli troops that would open fire.
The Washington
Rafah.
Post and New York Times have issued retractions. Were the retractions about that they got their numbers from the Palestinian Health Authority? But it's pretty obvious what happened here, right? It's
hilarious, man. They killed like another fucking 30, 50, 100 people, and half of them are little babies. So yeah, we also have numbers now that it's up to 20,000 kids. My favorite number is the number is now 10,000 children under the age of 13. So prepubescent children who cannot carry a rifle. Children, 10,000 dead. I was watching a video on Instagram last night with my girlfriend. She pulled it up and it was just like this like this Instagram, like adorable, like baby girl doing something really cute in her high chair, being really cute on Instagram, which is like a genre on Instagram. And I'm sorry, but like halfway through it, I just thought, what the fuck? If she died, it would eviscerate anybody who knew her or knew ever or watched this video. 10,000? I don't know. I mean, so Piers Morgan is against you now, Israel, like really against you. Everybody should watch his latest show with Natasha Hausdorff, who's like this paid Israeli propagandist. She's British. And then Dave Smith was there, but Dave basically didn't say anything and she just hung herself. And then Piers Morgan is pretty much screaming at her throughout. And Piers Morgan is the voice of the Western establishment. There is no one who is, more in touch with and more attuned with Western establishment opinion. And Piers is done with Israel, at least for now. And at least in regards to this war, I've never seen anything like this. And then it's just like establishment figure after establishment figure in the last month or two who have announced that they are, denouncing Israel, et cetera, et cetera. I know it's late, very late, and it's opportunistic, and they don't. Macron, my God, he denounced Israel for what it's doing. The UK government denounced Israel for what it's doing in Gaza. If you're a Jewish Israeli, I think you should think about moving. And it's about time. I'm sorry, but they should have told you that you're living in a colony surrounded by people who don't want you there for good reason. Because your people pushed them out. It's time to think about. I just don't see it. If Piers Morgan is yelling at you on his show, yelling at you and taking the side of a libertarian comedian, completely taking the side of a libertarian comedian, I think you're done as a state because you can't survive without American support. And we all know this. I mean, Israel as a Jewish ethno-state simply cannot survive without the United States providing the military and economic protection that we've provided since 1967. Either start, if you're an Israeli, if Jewish Israeli right now, there's two options. You need to be aggressively advocating for a binational democratic state in which everybody in that region has the same rights, radical idea, or you need to be leaving. That's where it's headed. You need to either say Palestinians get to have the same rights that everybody else does. We're going to take down the wall. We're going to allow them to vote. Yes, we will now have an Arab majority. But that's the way we do things. That's what happened in South Africa. That's the way things happen. And it's either you call for that or you leave. That's the end game of Zionism. either you keep fighting, hoping the indigenous population just surrenders, gives up, accepts this thing, or you fight forever. I mean, that's it. So good luck. I know you're torn up about this.
Well, not necessarily. I'm just, this particular incident just shows they're shooting fish in the barrel. Like, that's all they can be.
Almost literally, right? Exactly.
Yeah. Like, how do you expect this to go? Like you have a starving population. You bring in trucks of food. People swarm to the trucks. The IDF says they fired warning shots, but somehow 31 people die. Is there any allegation that there was some militia force that was also armed that could have been shooting back at the IDF? Why is it that only 31 Palestinian civilians die whenever this happens? There's no, and it's
that doctor, that pediatrician in Gaza City. They bombed her apartment building, and she had 9 children, and 8 of them were killed. And then the next day, her husband was killed. And this happens every day. This is a normal thing in Palestine.
The West Bank, the protesters, you see about this? The protesters burning down houses in the West Bank. Do you know about that? Yeah.
Listen, I said this on Twitter today. I've said it repeatedly before. I just need everyone, and I'm sure the audience here will know what I'm talking about, but the main message, the thing I'm worried about really right now, I would say as much as I worry about the children of Palestine, honestly, is the future of Jews. And because my son is Jewish, and I am technically eligible for Israeli citizenship, so I guess I'm, according to them, Jewish, and a lot of people I care about are Jewish, and including Israeli Jews I care about. Israel has been saying for 100 years now that what they do is what Jews want. They represent Jews. So every time they kill a little baby in Palestine, it's for me. It's for my son. It's for Jews. They're doing, because we want that. We need that for our own survival when we live in California and when we live in Brooklyn. Oh, we need you to kill babies in Palestine for our safety. Barry Weiss needs her safe. That's why we're killing babies in Gaza, so that Barry Weiss can be comfortable and safe in her house in Santa Monica. And this long term, in some ways, is actually more significant and dangerous than what's happening to the people of Palestine, believe it or not. Because Jews not long ago, that's right. Jews were subject to a Holocaust. Jews were subject to like mass, broad, vicious discrimination in Europe and the United States. Yeah. Well, I mean, so now for 100 years now, y'all have been saying everything Israel does is for me and for my son and for Jews. And because we need that. Well, Jesus Christ, if that's true, then someone should come up to me and shoot me in the fucking head. If I, because of some kind of weird ethnic identity that I have, require some country across the world to kill 10,000 children, and I want that and need that for my own existence, then you should kill me. I mean, that's just math. We are an evil people, those of us who are identified by Israel as Jews. I don't identify as a Jew. Israel identifies me as a Jew. Those of us who they identify as Jews, according to them, need to kill 10,000 children to survive. Which is the most farcical thing one could ever imagine. And yet it's about killing 10,000 children, not to mention another 30,000 innocent people who are not children. This is the greatest blood libel ever. Ever. By far. Ever applied to Jews. Israel is the greatest blood libel ever. Thank you very much for attaching to me and my son 10,000 child corpses. No, we had nothing to do with it. We never wanted anything to do with it. My Jewish ancestors chose to fuck you fucking Zionists 100 years ago and moved to New York instead of moving to Palestine. And we've never looked back, and nobody in my family, no Jew in my family or in my son's family, lots of Jews, has cared one fucking bit about Israel ever. No one has ever mentioned the damn word. No one cares. American Jews don't give a shit unless they were indoctrinated into this fucking cult. Anyway, it's just, I hope the Jews, Israel won't survive, and God bless, but I just really hope that Jews will not face more unfair discrimination based on the blood libel that Israel has placed on all of us. And it's ridiculous that I am saying this, but yes, I do count because I am eligible. Anyway, I just, fuck. Fuck.
Do you want to talk about the Boulder firebombing attack that happened? And I see the anti-Zionist movement getting dumber and paranoid and acting like caricatures of anti-Semites in some ways. And I don't necessarily mean about the attack itself, but claiming everything to be a false flag orchestrated by Mossad. There have been a lot of very public things that have happened in the last week or two. The Holocaust Museum attack and the Boulder attack included, that as soon as they happen, people go online and say, oh, this is a false flag Mossad agent. This is some MK Ultra compromised person doing this, and no empathy for for the people who are actually killed here, the innocent people who really have nothing to do with this conflict.
Okay, so
in the United States,
in both cases, it's very clear. I think it's one of two things, and I don't know which it is. I don't. No one knows, except the perpetrators. But what can I say? It's well, I guess okay. I mean, it's they are in both cases very clearly stated responses to, you can call it the genocide. If you don't think it's a genocide, it's at least a mass murder of children. I mean, I don't know. Like, how do you go ahead? Sorry.
We talked about the guy who lit himself on fire about a year ago. And if this conflict can push you to that, it's not hard to see it push you psychologically to the point where you'll light other people on fire. And I'm kind of surprised that there hasn't been more attacks like this, given the scale of death that has happened in the Middle East. I'm surprised that there's actually been so few attacks like this, and it's completely inexcusable. It's awful. It's the worst part of humanity, but it's predictable. It's a predictable outcome of what's happening.
So what I was going to say, I think, is that let's imagine it's 1944 in America, and this happened actually, and members of the German Bund, the German American Bund, which was the basically pro-Nazi, pro-German little tiny political group, but it existed and actually was based in Santa Monica in LA, held demonstrations, little protests with signs saying, hands off Germany. In fact, support Germany, support the Fuhrer. In 1944, and let's say that Americans knew about the Holocaust, which they didn't, but
not until
they did.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
In 44. I mean, a few did, but
a few
Right.
journalists who covered it up knew about it.
So let's say in 1944, actual Nazis were protesting with signs in New York City on behalf of the Nazi regime and saying we need to go to war. We need to continue our war against the Jews because they're evil and there's no negotiating with them and they're subverting our civilization. And so we need to continue the war against the Jews, like the war against Hamas now, right? What if there were in 1940, and if someone walked up to one of those protesters in 1944 and threw, let's say, acid in their face or doused them with gasoline and set them on fire, how would we feel about them? If someone in 1985 had their one-man protest supporting the South African segregation apartheid regime and saying, we need to continue our war against the blacks of South Africa because they're terrorist murderers, which some of them were, and someone walked up to that protester in New York City who was advocating for continued apartheid and continued war against the blacks of South Africa, and they threw petrol in his face and lit him on fire, or how would we feel? How about against the Soviet Union? Let's say the 1980s, 1970s, 1960s. Like, let's say some Czechoslovakian or Hungarian dissident stands up somewhere in some American city and says, we should stop talking to the Soviets because they ran a tank over my grandfather. Or I'm sorry, someone who's like pro-Soviet and is saying we should squelch the anti-communist insurgencies in Eastern Europe, and the Soviet Union is freedom fighters, and we should continue our war against the anti-communists. And someone walked up to them and doused them in gas and set them on fire. I mean, you know what I mean? Like, I don't know. I don't like killing people at all. I hate it. I hate the tactic, no matter who it is. But Jesus Christ, man, that's what's going on here. That's the equivalent. Yeah, that is moral equivalency.
Not the moral aspect so much, but just the parallel of importing a foreign conflict into America.
Oh,
yeah.
Yeah.
Like take the moralism out of it. We've got an incredibly bloody conflict with sides on it, and we have people with strong sides on both of it, and it's spilling over into our homeland because we are so grossly involved with it.
Correct.
Yeah.
Because we're funding it.
Yeah.
I mean, and people like the other thing about the U.S.-Israel relationship, I mean, we need to be clear about what we're calling for. It's not just eliminating the direct aid, the numbers that we see, you know, it's like $3 billion a year or something like that. No, that's almost insignificant. And in fact, a lot of Zionists get slick about this and they say, oh yeah, we don't want the United States to support us anymore. Eliminate the foreign aid to Israel. Yeah, we want to be independent. I'm like, good luck. That's not the main thing. It's the military umbrella, the security basically guarantee that the US gives to Israel. Like when Iran sends a missile into Israel, who's backing them up? Who's shooting down the missiles and who's retaliating? It's the United States. Who's sending the aircraft carriers into the Mediterranean and into the Persian Gulf when things get rough for Israel? It's us, right? No, we need to have none of that. We need to treat Israel as any other country. We're not going to send any military support. We're not going to provide any intelligence support. We're not going to shoot down anybody trying to attack you like the Houthis. Who did that? The US. We were the ones who first attacked the Houthis for Israel. None of that. Go it alone. If you think you can have a Jewish ethno-state in the middle of the Middle East, God bless. Do it. Have fun. We're just not going to support you. That, by the way, is my position on Israel. I'm not anti-Zionist in that way. If they want to do that, fine. Who am I to say you can't try that? But if you get annihilated because you want to establish an exclusive ethno-state on prime real estate in the Mediterranean and displace all these Arab people who live there and then oppress them when they try to come back for a century, yeah, I don't want to be a part of that. Thank you. So good luck, brothers and sisters. And, you know, I don't think you have any chance of succeeding without superpower help. But if you do, fine. What can I say? Just I don't want to help you. So that's the proper non-Zionist or anti-Zionist position, which of course the American left doesn't pay attention to, and is much more concerned with wearing keffiyehs and identifying with Palestinians, which they're not.
I think it's fair to call it a moderate position at this point to arrest Netanyahu. I don't see it. Yeah,
I would say it's a moderate position, and I can't. Yeah, I mean, I would say it's a moderate position to call for a military intervention against Israel to stop the slaughter. I mean, that some kind of coalition of other countries at this point, yeah, I don't think I'd be against it.
If only there was a large peacekeeping force in the North Atlantic that was capable of such a thing.
That could handle the Israeli military.
Yeah.
I mean, my God, the U.S. with like 1/10 of its military could destroy Israel in a second. I mean, the IDF is like way overhyped, and without U.S. support, they ain't nothing.
Well,
no, I mean, I think there should be some kind of coalition. I don't know what coalition that would be, but some kind of at this point. Unless we're going to have more dead babies. That's the only way to stop babies being killed tomorrow. It's terrible, but that's where they put us. The Zionists. This is the end. This is the end result of the logic of Zionism. It was always headed here. Read what the Zionists said in the 1890s, the 1920s, all of them. Herzl, Jabotinsky, Ben-Gurion, all of them said this will be an eternal wartime state, because the indigenous people will resist us. Guess what happened? And so we're still here. They're still resisting. We're still killing them. Let's give up and move to LA instead.
One last thread that should be tied up for the show is the phone call Trump had with Putin recently. The hour and 15 minutes. The two big things on it where it sounded like Trump said Putin was angry about the drone attacks and that he's going to retaliate. And there wasn't any saber rattling from Trump on that. It seems like Trump understood that Russia is entitled to a retaliatory attack after the drone attacks. And then the other piece of information was that he is working that Putin, this is all according to Trump, but that Putin agrees that Iran should not be nuclear. Those are the two big key points of their latest correspondence.
Yeah, we're universal egalitarians. We believe in the natural rights of all people on Earth, except that certain countries shouldn't have the weapons that we have. It's so funny when liberalism confronts its own contradictions. You know what I mean? When I say liberalism, I mean sort of the general ideology that dominates American political discourse, including for Trump himself. I mean, there's a lot of liberalism in his own thinking. So it's this idea, oh yeah, no, we're for, free trade and equal relations between states, but oh no, you can't have nuclear weapons. We have hundreds of them and we can blow up the entire Earth in 5 minutes. But you should not have, and we all know this, right? We know that just Iran should not have nuclear weapons. We need them. The United Kingdom needs them. Israel needs them. Our allies need nuclear weapons. France needs them. But no, you can't. But Iran, we all know this. They never explain why. But we just know that Iran, they're evil, I guess. They're evil, and therefore they should not have the weapons that we possess. It's an amazing thing. It's such an imperial way of thinking that no one even is aware of, or very few people are even aware of. How on earth is that the case? And they think it's like some sort of universal morality, as if God himself said that Iran should not have nuclear weapons, but the United States should. Where exactly is this written in the universal moral code that the US should have big bombs that can kill everybody, but this country in Persia should not? It's amazing. The imperial thinking is wild. When you step back from it and look at it from a distance, it's really helpful, illuminating to look at it in that way.
We've talked about this before, but yeah, Jeffrey Sachs said from a realpolitik perspective, the best thing that could happen to the region would be for Iran to get a nuclear weapon.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Boom, boom, boom is my pun.
Uh-huh.
Yes, I mean, yes, without the threat of the boom, Israel, I mean, yes, the United States and Israel will continue to have its way largely in that whole region, and I don't see why they should have any influence whatsoever. The principal mission, everybody needs to hear this and know this. The primary and principal mission of Iranian foreign policy since 1979 has been simple, explicit, stated over and over again, and acted upon consistently over and over again since 1979, which is to drive the United States and its ally Israel out of the region, because neither one of them has any business being there as military forces. If the United States and Israel or some Jewish nation somewhere wants to trade and interact with Iran in the Middle East, fine. But as military outposts, literally, in the form of the state of Israel and in the form of all those US military bases all over the Middle East, no, there's nothing legitimate about that, and they need to be driven out. And they're not going to be driven out by asking them nicely. And clearly, the American people, many of whom have been asking to bring them out of those countries, have never been listened to. Those bases are still there. They're still huge. The biggest air base in the world is in Qatar. I mean, but there's look at a map. Everybody should look at a map of US military bases in the Middle East. It's stunning. Thousands and thousands and thousands of US people, American people, are in those places in US uniforms and military uniforms, living on those bases. Why is this? Iran's mission in foreign policy has been primarily to drive the United States out of the Middle East. And on that single issue, I am 100% in solidarity, as we should all be. It does us no good as American citizens, in no way. How much does it cost us? It kills people. It makes people angry at us. It makes people want to fly planes into our buildings. Every single one of us should be not being mad about the Iranians when they attack a US military base, but like asking, why is a US military base in Iran or near Iran? Like, what? That's all.
Mm-hmm. There's I guess we don't have time for it. There's the renaming of the ships. Pete Hegseth, just to tie up the left-wing story. Pete Hegseth renaming the USNS Harvey Milk and the USNS Harriet Tubman and Ruth Bader Ginsburg into hopefully they'll have Confederate generals, and we'll be back to being a proper military where our warships are named after actual war fighters. But the fact that these icons of the progressive left are the warships ties into our earlier discussion about the Republicans versus the Democrats and imperialism, and that the mainstream Democratic Party is lamenting that our war fighters and our bastions of imperialism aren't being named after anti-racist icons like Harriet Tubman or gay rights icons like Harvey Milk.
Yeah. Well, so again, the twists and turns here are kind of funny, but like, I'm not convinced that Harvey Milk was an anti-imperialist. I'm not convinced that Harvey Milk shouldn't be on the name of an aircraft carrier, because number one, he served. Yeah. He volunteered, I think. Was he drafted?
True.
He served.
He was the original Buttigieg. Yeah, he was the original.
Right.
Yeah.
And for a while, like, he was a Navy guy, I think, not just a conscript. And yes, he was, I think, a member. Yes, he was a member of the Democratic Socialists of America. So therefore, he was definitely on the left of American accepted political discourse. I don't recall him ever calling into question the American empire. Yes, he was against the Contra War, and yes, he was against the funding the Salvadoran government, and yes, he was, I think, for détente, I think, with the Soviet Union. But I don't know. that was standard, as I said earlier, that was standard fare American Democratic Party boilerplate. But they never challenged the big apparatus, the big idea that the United States should be everywhere. So I don't know. I think he should be on the side of a battleship.
Fair for him. And his connection with Jim Jones.
Oh God, yeah. Yes, big time.
Yeah.
Yes, no, I know. Wow, yeah.
He wrote some letters to some senators telling them not to go down there and investigate. Also, he was with them through and through.
The San Francisco political Democratic Party establishment in 1978, 77, when the People's Temple was happening, ran a lot of cover. I'm talking about the mayor of San Francisco, Harvey Milk. I don't know about Feinstein, but
she was too low then. Yeah,
certainly. Yeah, but the Democratic Party establishment in San Francisco did a lot of incredible covering for Jim Jones in that time. It's stunning. Yeah.
I did see some principled leftists on Twitter say, "Please, for the love of God, rename these ships. We don't want Harriet Tubman, our icon who freed us, the slaves, going out there and enslaving other people. Please, I don't care what excuse."
I don't know. Yeah. Okay, let me do Harriet Tubman.
I know so she's an abolitionist fiction used to justify the Civil War. Yeah.
More than that, no. I mean, I think she's pretty clearly I think she was pretty clearly used by the Union Army for propaganda purposes.
Yeah.
And the Union Army what was their strategy in the South? I think they called it total war.
Yeah.
We know how many they killed. And that was without machine guns. And that was without bomber planes. I mean, this is, they killed a stunning hundreds of thousands of people with basically primitive technology, which means they went to total war. And Harriet Tubman was a major part of that propaganda campaign. So yeah, her name should be on the side of a battleship too.
Well, in this case, if we rename our battleships after Confederate generals again, maybe our military will actually be defensive once again.
God bless that notion. America having a defensive military. Oof. We've never had it. We've never had one. We've never had a defensive military. The Marine Corps was invented immediately when Jefferson took power, and it's been the most famous and lauded military unit in America since, which, of course, the Marine Corps is, by definition, only an offensive unit. Anyway, someday we'll get there, Michael, because of you and me.
After show?
Of course.
Yeah.
For patrons only, though.
Still live on Patreon.
People who suck don't get to come. But
where we could discuss Elon Musk's black eye and what that might mean.
You can discuss anything you want at the after show. Yeah, go to patreon.com/unregistered. And for like $5 a month, for $5 a month, you can come to the show, which happens every Wednesday after this, Unreported. Right now, Michael and I are going, and we're hanging out with the viewers of the show and hanging out. You can come and be anonymous. You can not show your face. You can not show your name if you want, or you can show everything and yell at me and scream at me or tell Michael, that he should be the leader of this show. Whatever it is you need to say, you can do it by going to patreon.com/unregistered. And I hope you show up and I hope you support the show. Even if you don't want to come and hang out with us, you should support the show because you listen to this and you're still here. And this means a lot to you. I'm talking to you, viewer and listener. This means a lot to you. So you should give us $5. Thank you. That's all.
Yeah, that's the only way to really be up to date on the Thaddeus Russell world. And Thaddeus
the
Russell
Michael world.
Yeah. Right
Substack.
here.
Thank you.
ThaddeusRussell.substack.com. We've got 6-7 articles now. And yeah,
like
you're really churning them out.
There'll be a new
4 or 5.
There's a new one. There's a new one dropping tomorrow, which I mentioned earlier, which is going to be a banger. Yeah, on the founding fathers, the founding of this country, the ideology of it. Yeah, it's always been a global empire, and the stories of the founding fathers are quite amazing, regarding their very, very early, teenage dreams about being Julius Caesar. So check it out tomorrow, not tonight, but tomorrow. That'll be dropping. And go to Substack and follow me. That's where everything is moving, by the way. Not right now. People are asking me, but in the next week or two, certainly in June this month, everything that I do, that you do, will be funneled through Substack eventually. So if you want to get in on that, join Substack. You can become a free follower or a subscriber. But do that now to see where we're going soon.
And yeah, if you like to read, if you're somebody who actually likes to chew on ideas and read, that's where you go. Yeah.
I just love being in Substack and reading people and getting back into that whole world of words, and it's amazing. It's so much better than Twitter. Yeah, I strongly recommend it. Even if you don't follow me or subscribe to me, I really recommend and actually urge people, if you're not a juvenile and have real curiosity about the world and about ideas, go to Substack. Don't be on Twitter anymore. It's wonderful. It's truly an amazing game changer, and I'm really grateful for it. So yeah, I'll see you all in Substack, hopefully. Michael, and I'll see you at Zoom. I'll see you at the after show in a minute.
Yeah. After the party's the after party.
You're the dude. Yeah. We're the man. Thank you, man.
Yep. Go Pacers.
See you there. Oh yeah. Ouch.
Yeah.
Peace.